fact, coming towards the strike group. Now, that was the first realization that we would have to engage the enemy. Those MiGs were shot down, and I saw both MiGs explode at my right 3 o'clock at probably 10 miles.
Three, red. Blast! Blast coming out westbound!
That was a significant milestone, watching aircraft actually explode in the air, and those pilots did not escape based on the size of the explosions.
High-tech combat aircraft, which appeared in the 1980s, have revolutionized air warfare. These were not simply aircraft which could fly a little higher or a little faster than before, but embraced completely new concepts involving extensive use of new materials and computerization of everything, from flight itself to target acquisition and fire control to navigation and mission management. We have gone from Star Wars almost to Star Trek in less than a decade. These are American pilots dogfighting MiGs and evading Scuds during Desert Storm. Fighters like the American McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle, the Russian Sukhoi Su-27 Flanker, and the French Dassault Mirage 2000 are equally at home outmaneuvering more conventional aircraft or delivering ordnance with pinpoint accuracy. But even these combat-tested performers will be eclipsed by the amazing machines which will enter service over the next decade. As Al Jolson reminded us in the late 20s, we ain't seen nothing yet. He was talking about movie technology. But he could just as well have been describing technological change in combat airplanes towards the end of the 20th century. Aircraft like the American F-22, the French Rafale, the Swedish Gripen, and the multinational Eurofighter 2000 will offer unbelievable agility with incredible technical sophistication, incorporating the latest smart weapons, cockpit designs, and stealth technology in a package which would have seemed pure science fiction only a generation ago. The fighter interceptor has been one of the driving forces in aircraft development. Constantly striving for that extra knot of speed, a faster rate of climb, an ever-tightening turning circle, has pushed fighter design right to the boundaries of the possible. High agility, the key to success in aerial combat in the 1990s, is largely the result of computer advances. But it is also true that today's fighters are increasingly built with composite materials that are lighter and stronger than ever before. Aside from the breakthrough in agility, the new Superfighters can also fight more effectively at great distances. Most can begin an aerial duel from well beyond visual range, detecting targets with advanced multifunctioned radars and engaging with reliable fire-and-forget missiles. They can engage targets flying at low level, being able to weed out unwanted reflections from the ground while locking onto a fast-flying target with uncanny precision. The West's superfighter for over 20 years has been the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. This has been the fighter which set the standard until very recently. The Eagle was developed at the end of the 1960s to replace the famous F-4 Phantom, which at that time was wresting control of the skies in Vietnam. The Eagle carried basically the same armament as the Phantom, but introduced vastly superior levels of power, maneuverability, and avionics. The primary short-range weapon remains the infrared heat-seeking missile. The Eagle carries 4 AIM-9 Sidewinders. This type has been around for over 40 years. Modern versions like the Lima and the Mike, however, are incredibly sensitive and can engage from all angles while resisting enemy countermeasures such as flares. Medium or beyond visual range engagements have been transformed by the development of radar-equipped fire-and-forget missiles. The Eagle carries semi-active missiles like the AIM-9 Sparrow. The Eagle's latest weapon is the AIM-120 AMRAAM, a new fire-and-forget weapon. This means that after launch, the fighter can turn away from the engagement, and the missile, entirely on its own, will hunt down the target like a Terminator. It will not stop until it does its job. This overcomes the disadvantage of older weapons, which required the target to be illuminated by the F-15's radar, which meant that the Eagle's nose had to be pointed at the enemy throughout the whole engagement, closing very rapidly on somebody who might be shooting back. With the AMRAAM and her sisters, the Eagle can launch and immediately turn away to meet another oncoming threat, while the missile's onboard radar does the work of detecting and homing in on the first enemy aircraft. Since entering service with the U.S. Air Force in 1974, the Eagle has been exported to 3 other countries: Japan, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. On several occasions, it has proved itself in combat to be the world's undisputed master of the skies. During the 1982 clash with the Syrian Air Force over the Bekaa Valley, Israeli Air Force F-15s shot down dozens of Syrian MiG and Sukhoi fighters with no losses to themselves. The F-15 dances through the sky like a prima ballerina, getting a standing ovation. Is that a victory roll or what? Fast, heavily armed, and phenomenally agile, the Sukhoi Su-27 flanker has for a decade been the world's best combat fighter. The powerful flanker sets the standard today by which all current fighters are judged. Sukhoi's brief in the design of the flanker was to produce a long-range, heavily armed, and highly maneuverable fighter, able to meet the American F-15 Eagle on equal terms, while also being able to intercept low-flying NATO attack aircraft, bombers, and cruise missiles. The aircraft which entered service in the mid-1980s succeeded admirably in meeting those requirements from its earliest days. A specially modified example, the P-42, smashed all existing world records for rate of climb and range. The West's first close-up view of the Su-27 came when flankers based on the Kola Peninsula intercepted Norwegian P-3 Orions over the Arctic. But it was in 1989 that the flanker was first fully revealed to the West at the Paris Air Show. It astonished not only the general public, but defense analysts as well, with its amazing maneuvers which no Western fighter could emulate. These included the famous Pugachev Cobra and the tail slide. The Sukhoi has since added the hook, a horizontal version of the Cobra. That tail slide again, an almost revolutionary evasive maneuver. A navalized flanker, the Su-33 is in service with the Russian Naval Air Arm, the AVMF. Sukhoi chief test pilot Viktor Pugachev made the first carrier landing with the navalized Su-27K on September 1st, 1989. Around 30 Su-33s are deployed on the sole Russian aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov. These serve primarily in the air defense role. The flanker is now the premier fighter in the Russian Air Force, as well as the air arms of the Ukraine and Belarus, and has also been exported to China. In the late 1980s, Sukhoi began development of an advanced version of the flanker. Originally known as the Su-27M, it will enter service with the Russian Air Force as the Su-35. It has a number of new advanced features not found on older Su-27s. The modern glass cockpit has 3 multifunction color displays. These mark a major improvement over the traditional analog displays on the original flanker. There is also a new multi-mode radar with both air-to-air and air-to-ground capability. Up to 15 targets can be tracked at ranges in excess of 350 kilometers. And in the air-to-air mode, it can be used to engage 6 targets simultaneously. The pilot sits in a reclined seat. The cockpit sides have been lowered, which, with the less bulbous radome, improves the forward view. Here is another advanced version of the flanker, the Su-32FN long-range strike fighter with tandem seating. Dubbed the Platypus, it will enter service shortly. The partner to the flanker in the Russian Air Force is the Mikoyan MiG-29 Fulcrum. This airplane likewise has immense power and agility and is typical of the generation of superfighters currently in service. The MiG in various incarnations has been around since the Korean War, but the MiG-29 has about as much in common with the MiG-15 as an F-14 Tomcat does with a World War II Hellcat. The pace of aircraft design and development is accelerating. It often seems that no sooner does a new machine come off a CAD-assisted computer desktop drawing board and a prototype produced, then somebody else's machine has already rendered it obsolete. This is definitely the case with the F-14 Tomcat, which is showing its age in terms of superfighter advanced design. Once the premier carrier defense and air superiority fighter during the 1970s, its huge size and weight made it ideal as one of the first truly successful multifunction platforms. Not only could it fight air-to-air and maneuver with the best of the best, it could bomb ground targets as well. It has needed a lot of technological facelifts over the years to keep it in the ring with younger fighters. But like an aging prize fighter, its legs are starting to go, and its mission will soon be downgraded to close air support and bombing, while a younger panoply of more agile fighters like the F-16 and F-18 Hornet give it protection from above. The F-14 is due to take over the less glamorous role of the A-6 Intruder as a ground attack platform. The Intruder itself has been retired from active service. It's just too old and slow to survive in an age of pinpoint missile accuracy. Another airplane in the Tomcat's position is the Mirage 2000. An older design, first flown in the 1970s, it too has been to the technological plastic surgeon in order to appear younger and more fit. The delta wing design is inherently unstable. Canard foreplanes help in this regard, and coupled with fly-by-wire computerization, make the problem disappear. This is the configuration of all state-of-the-art fighter aircraft today. This Mirage 2005 has been fitted with fly-by-wire, new heads-up display, and other nips and tucks, but she carries no foreplanes to speak of. But, like the Tomcat, will still be on the card, just not a contender for the main event championship. But the Mirage can still cut the mustard. Here it is, slathering some on this Iraqi hot dog. This Mirage pilot doesn't appear to have it together. Maybe his fly-by-wire has turned into haywire. The Panavia Tornado is currently the most advanced military aircraft in Europe. Designed as a premier ground attack and electronic combat recon platform, it can go in low and slow or low and fast, taking out ground defenses along the way with a sophisticated array of laser-guided missiles and bombs, all guaranteed to strike home every time. It's fast enough and highly agile, so much so that of all aircraft designed to fill this particular role, the Tornado doesn't really need fighter cover going in. A joint production of England and Germany as major partners, with Italy in the pot for 15%, the Tornado flies in all their air forces and a few others besides. A veteran of the Gulf War, the Tornado resulted from a late 60s feasibility study for such an aircraft by Belgium, Canada, the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom. The first three countries bowed out when it came time to put up or shut up. The latter three put up the cash and formed the Panavia Consortium to design and build it. This airplane has aged extremely well and will serve in European air forces for the foreseeable future and well into the next century. As the world advances toward the 21st century, a whole new generation of computer-controlled machines is on the point of entering service. such aircraft will shortly begin flying with European air forces. All share a common delta-wing design with Canard foreplanes. The first is the Eurofighter 2000. And like the earlier collaboration with Tornado, it is likewise a joint production of the Pan-Avia countries with Spain as an additional partner. The airplane features advanced aerodynamic design and engine technology. Neutral Sweden has always had a tradition of developing her own advanced combat aircraft. The latest in the breed of Saab Superfighters is also the lightest and smallest of the new European combat aircraft. It's the JAS-39 Gripen, whose advanced cockpit design features LCD color displays that allows for easy and fast assimilation of complex information by the pilot, freeing him to concentrate on his mission. Those canards also offer additional air braking, as well as providing stability in flight. The Gripen seems hardly bigger than a mosquito as such airplanes go, which would have been a good name for it. The French Dassault Rafale will be one of the first of the next generation machines to become operational. The maritime version is expected to be in service aboard French carriers by the end of the 90s. This is the advanced multi-role fighter that will replace the aging Mirage 2000 design. Plans call for several different variants, including a tandem two-seater for advanced electronic countermeasures and recon. On this almost touch and go, the Rafale demonstrates a phenomenal rate of climb. The Lockheed Martin Boeing F-22 with its stealth configuration is the most capable of all new generation superfighters, but it comes at a very steep price. Parachute braking is a must on this ship. Technology for the next generation of U.S. superfighters has been demonstrated by several research aircraft. Two are modifications of existing highly maneuverable fighters, while the third is a specially built machine. Although not a superfighter in its own right, the XR-31 is a demonstrator for many of the technologies finding their way into the next generation of U.S. superfighters. It has Canard foreplanes and a thrust vectoring nozzle. This plane stole the show at Le Bourget in 1995. The F-16 is another aged fighter, except that it wears old age better than any other ship because it was so far ahead of its time in the middle 70s when it first flew. Many of its original design features, such as wings flowing into the fuselage, were incorporated into later designs. This specially modified F-16 Vista was chosen to incorporate up-to-date state-of-the-art technologies to see if its already considerable capabilities could be improved enough to keep it current with the best of the new designs currently coming off the boards and into production. The specially modified Vista's specific role, beyond that already mentioned, is to test the airframe's maneuverability at high angles of attack. This F-18 Hornet has been given similar modifications and a similar role in superfighter research. Like the XR-31, it also has vectored nozzles to help the rudder kick the tail around fast in evasive maneuvers, and to turn on a dime and hand the enemy a considerable amount of change. The Hornet, along with the F-16, is for the present the American fighter aircraft mainstay and our first line of defense. The missions of the Superfighter remain much the same as they were 50 years ago: to defeat an enemy in battle and to seize control of the skies. At its simplest, the task of the fighter is to win control of the air through aerial combat. But the kind of tactics used depends on where the fight takes place. In August of 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. Saddam Hussein's forces easily overpowered the brief defense put up by the small Kuwaiti army. And within hours, he was threatening to roll into Saudi Arabia. A successful conclusion to his plans would have given him a stranglehold on the world supply of oil. The Saudis invited foreign governments to send troops to their country to safeguard it from possible attack by Iraq. At Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, Eagle aircrew of the 1st Tactical Fighter Wing began to prepare for the arduous deployment to the Middle East. In a powerful display of the strategic mobility of air power, 48 F-15C and D models of the Eagle took off from Langley Field and flew non-stop to Bahrain in Saudi Arabia. It was the longest operational fighter deployment in history. The flights took between 14 and 17 hours, with 6 or 7 in-flight refuelings along the route. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Klein commanded the 27th Tactical Fighter Squadron, a unit of the 1st Fighter Wing.
We had no idea what to expect. We had a contingency plan to fight our way in if necessary. We were fully armed with 4 Sidewinders, 4 Sparrows, and the gun was loaded out. Fortunately, we didn't have to fight our way in when we arrived at Bahrain. My squadron had 1 day down on August 10 to recover, and then we were up and operational the next day. We constituted the prime defense of Saudi Arabia, along with 48 F-15s and 24 Panavia Tornado fighters of the Royal Saudi Arabian Air Force.
The trickle of support very quickly grew into the massive stream of arms and men which became known as Operation Desert Shield. As this reinforcement moved into top gear, confidence was high that a diplomatic solution to the crisis would be found. However, no one was taking any chances, and fully armed F-15s flew around-the-clock combat air patrols along the border with Kuwait. By now, Britain had weighed in with a squadron of Tornadoes.
Our initial mission was simply to secure the airbase at Bahrain, working anything from 60 to 90 kilometers out. We didn't have to cover a full circle since any enemy aircraft would be coming from the north. We went up with Saudi E-3 AWACS, which were used to working with F-15s, and they showed us the airspace. We'd worked out a good grid structure where people would know exactly in which area they would have responsibility. With 2 squadrons, the first could keep fighters in the air 24 hours a day, and we did, right up to the outbreak of the war. Early on, we played a kind of cat-and-mouse game with the Iraqis. They were testing us, wanting to see what we had. They'd come right up to the border, even come south of the line a couple of times before turning and running. We were locking onto them from long distance. Their ECM gear was reacting, and our guess convinced them they weren't going to be able to arrive undetected. A lot of flights made contact, although the closest we got to is within about 30 kilometers.
Two-ship 11, 9 o'clock, converting.
Patrols were usually 4-ship missions lasting 2 or 3 hours. We'd tank 3 times.
After nearly 6 months of negotiation and diplomacy, the deadline passed for the UN resolution demanding the withdrawal of Iraqi troops from Kuwait. Desert Storm had begun. On the 17th of January, 1991, the first day of the war, Captain Steve Tate of the 71st Tactical Fighter Squadron of the 1st Tactical Fighter Wing entered the history books when he scored the first kill of Desert Storm. He took off with 3 other Eagles at 0130 hours on the first strike of the war.
We flew for 1 hour toward the central Saudi-Iraq border, joined on a tanker and got gas. Then we headed north, straight to Baghdad. We were escorting a strike force. I split my 4-ship into 2 counter-rotating caps. AWACS called out a possible bogey heading towards the other element. At around 0320, I locked up a bogey. I confirmed he was a bandit and shot a Fox 1. That's a Sparrow radar-guided missile at 22 kilometers. The missile hit at 7 kilometers off my nose. The fireball from my kill was incredible. It completely lit up the sky, and I could see the airplane break up and exploded in a million pieces.
Luck was to desert the 1st Tactical Fighter Wing for the rest of the war. Captain Tate's kill was to be the only one awarded to the wing. The lion's share of victories was scored by the 33rd Tactical Fighter Wing, which had deployed to Tabuk to the west of Saudi Arabia from Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. Captain Charles McGill was a U.S. Marine Corps exchange pilot detached to the Air Force during Desert Storm. He flew F-15s with the 58th Tactical Fighter Squadron of the 33rd Tactical Fighter Wing.
I was leading 8 F-15s on our first day strike mission at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. AWACS came up and said they had a couple of Iraqi MiG-29s patrolling the target area, Al-Taqaddam airfield. We pushed out in front of the strike package, got us close enough to the bandits that they became a threat to our strike package. I took one of my 4 ships towards them. The other 4 F-15s continued sweeping the area looking for other bandits. As we approached the intercept, AWACS assured us there were only 2 bandits in the area. The Iraqis had a pretty sophisticated air defense system. They fired a few SAMs at us and we headed for the MiGs. Pushed up the speed and got past the initial surface-to-air threat. 2 MiGs turned north at a bad time, so we accelerated. When they turned back into us at a low altitude, we were at medium altitude and we let them have it. My number 3, Rory Drager, fired 1 Sparrow, and I fired 2. When you get down to the bottom line, everything was incredibly basic. Weapon systems set up just right, shoot your weapons at the most opportune moment, watch the MiGs blow up, and get the hell out. We got them. The kills were extremely clean, and there was no sign of ejection. After the kill, there was no time to relax, because that's when something can really bite you.
Captain McGill's squadron was to become the leading F-15 unit of the Gulf War. It accounted for 17 of the coalition's 41 air-to-air victories. Another pilot in the same squadron was Captain Anthony Schiavi. He recounts a mission.
The mission we were on was protection, a high-value asset, HAV Combat Air Patrol, which we called HAVCAP. Our asset was an E-3B Sentry AWACS aircraft. By this time in the war, we were doing so well in the air-to-air part that there was a lot of flexibility. We had an AWACS in the eastern, central, and western parts of the theater. We'd been up on CAP for about an hour and a half. We were about 130 to 150 kilometers from the H-2 and H-3 airfields near the Jordanian border when the AWACS called and said, "Hey, we got bandits taking off from H-2, a whole group of them heading northeast. Go get them." In the F-15, firepower is awesome. When you get 4 F-15s running in a wall towards somebody, there's no way you're not going to come out victorious. So our game plan at all times was to keep our 4 ships together, to use that firepower. As we were heading towards the first gaggle of Iraqi fighters, 4 more take off right behind them from H-2. We were caught in between. Draeger targets the map reader, the guy in the front. He shoots first. We're now well inside 30 kilometers. I see his missile guiding. I shoot next, just a couple of seconds after him. As the missiles start flying off, we pick up the first tally-hos. Visual sightings about 15 kilometers out. We can see the floggers running across the desert fast. Draeger's missile hits his man. He calls splash, then looks again, but the MiG flies right through the fireball and comes out the other side. He's burning but not down. Draeger prepares to fire a sidewinder, but before he can do this, the fire reaches the wing root and the MiG suddenly explodes in a huge fireball.
The Eagles went on to score a total of 41 kills during Desert Storm. 8 U.S. Air Force pilots scored 2 kills. Rearming and turnaround time on the ground went fast, thanks to well-trained crews attached to individual planes. Hornets flew from bases inside Saudi Arabia, as well as from carriers out at sea. The Hornet and other advanced aircraft stand on the shoulders of all that has gone before in terms of aircraft design and testing. One of the results of which is this state-of-the-art cockpit display, which gives the pilot a graphic instant readout on all his weapons. Wheeling out of the sky, the flight of Hornets live up to their namesake as they devastate the fleeing Iraqis. Targets are easily delineated on the Hornet's console display. And on the heads-up display if the pilot is too busy to check the former. Thousands of sorties were flown from U.S. carrier decks by Hornets. Flares launched backward will confuse a heat-seeking missile.